flown to Guinea, where he was first buried in Conakry in a well-attended state funeral. His grave in Conakry was later opened and his well-embalmed body removed and flown back to Ghana in a special Guinean Air Force plane on 7th July 1972, following a long-drawn diplomatic tussle. The following day, his body was laid in state at the State House in Accra, Ghana, and hundreds and thousands of Ghanaians lined up to pay their last respect to their first Prime Minister and first President. Kwame Nkrumah was then laid to rest in his hometown of Nkrofo in the western region of Ghana. 20 years after, precisely on July 1st, 1992, Nkrumah's body was exhumed again at the request of the government of Ghana and reburied finally at the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial in Accra, Ghana, on the same ground where Nkrumah himself made the historic declaration of Ghana's independence in 1957. The first military coup in Ghana had long been executed, but its impact on the socio-political history of Ghana shall remain in the history books of Africa and the world for many more years to come. Many thanks for watching this episode of Back in History, and do remember to subscribe to the channel or follow the page for regular notifications on every new video. The Council for the Sake of Balance. General Joseph Ankara was appointed as the chairman of the National Liberation Council. Some reports have stated that Ankara was not part of the coup, that he was only invited by the coup plotters after the coup had been executed to lead the council as chairman and by implication as the new president or head of state of Ghana. The report has it that General Ankara was invited by the leader of the coup, Emmanuel Kotoka. Other reports have said that Ankara was part of the plot and was in fact the person who was in contact with the external sponsors of the coup. Whatever the truth may be, the fact remains that following the coup that removed President Kwame Nkrumah from office, Lieutenant General Joseph Ankara became the successor to the office of the head of state of Ghana and took over the leadership of the country. The new regime was initially greeted with applause from several segments of Ghana. They commenced the administration in earnest and freed all the persons that were detained in prisons during Nkrumah's regime. The man who announced the coup, Lieutenant General Emmanuel Kotoka, became an instant hero and was celebrated by many people. Ghana had fallen completely into military rule, and all democratic institutions and principles were effectively suspended. A year after the coup, precisely on 17th April 1967, another shake-up occurred in Ghana, resulting in the death of the national hero at the time, Lieutenant General Emmanuel Kotoka, the man who announced the removal of Nkrumah. The flagship house, that is the seat of power in Ghana, was invaded by soldiers under the leadership of Lieutenant Samuel Arthur. In that process, General Kotoka was arrested and later murdered and thrown into a ditch on the road to the airport. Following the first military coup of 1966, Ghana was never the same again. It was as though the coup had opened the floodgates for coups. Several other coups took place in the country, and the country remained under military rule and dictatorship for many years, until the country eventually returned to democratic rule. At the time of the coup, Nkrumah's family was in Ghana. Nkrumah was married to an Egyptian lady, Fathia Ritz Nkrumah, with whom they had 3 children, Gamal, Samia, and Seko. The children were quite young, and the political situation in Ghana was considered risky for their continued stay in the country. Nkrumah's wife then took the children to Cairo, where they were raised. During this time, her husband still remained in Guinea. The children grew up to attend schools in other parts of the world and eventually returned to Ghana as adults. Fathia, their mother, remained in Cairo till May 2007 when she passed on at Bauriwi Hospital in Cairo, Egypt. The funeral mass in her honor was held in Coptic Orthodox Cathedral Church by Pope Shenouda III on June 2007, after which her body was flown to Ghana for funeral at the State House as a former First Lady. She was then buried next to her husband at the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. This was an actualization of her lifelong request. Kwame Nkrumah lived in Conakry, Guinea, as the guest of President Sékou Touré for many years. Along the way, he took ill in Guinea in August 1971 and was flown to Bucharest in Romania for medical treatment. He was diagnosed of prostate cancer. In April 1972, he succumbed to the cold hands of death while in the hospital in Romania at the age of 62. His remains